All good?
Whenever you're ready.
All right. Man, that peach is peachy.
Yeah. Very, 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 very peachy.
Let's fucking go. This is the Outlaw Apostle Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Neff. I'm the fucking guy, and it is Labor Day, and happy Labor Day to you, Leo.
Thank you, man. Happy Labor Day to you as well.
Right? For all the hardworking people out there taking the day off. Good. 4-day weekends or 3-day weekends, right? 3-day weekends.
3 days.
Maybe you took 4. Maybe you took Friday off too. But 3-day weekends, good for you. That's awesome. I remember doing hard labor. You know what I remember most about it? That I don't want to do it anymore. So God bless you people that do. That build shit and make shit run and make shit work. It's what makes this country great for sure. You are it. And I absolutely feel that and believe that. So it was pretty busy weekend for sure. Included another, so we had a home game on Thursday with the Mercury, which we did attend. And I gave you all an update on Friday. And then we had a home game Saturday night. And it was a big game. They were playing the New York Liberty. Great team. Now, they were without one of their top players. But it was still a very important game for us and very important game to try to win. And they did. A couple great plays or a couple significant contributions by Natasha Mack and Kalia Copper were very outstanding. Of course, AT, who we're rooting for to be the MVP, played great. She was good. But, you know, I said I wasn't done yet with the whole thing. And I wanted to speak to the head of security that I was supposed to, I thought, have contact with last week and didn't. And so I searched him. I searched him out. I talked to some security people and said, hey, can we track him down? Can he come see me? And he did meet me before the game, and we had a little conversation. And interesting enough, so this kind of all coming to a head. Basically, I still wasn't told exactly how I crossed the line. And what I kind of understand from it is again, you know, I irritated the coach and they didn't have much choice but to follow what the coach asked for. If the coach asked to have somebody removed, they're going to have you removed. I don't think the coach even really heard exactly what I said. It was just a kind of in the moment thing, which was all I said was challenge the call, which is just so crazy. And so he did say, you know, just take it easy on him. I'm like, take it easy on him. I said, challenge the call. But then he said something else that really made me curious. He said, but, you know, once the playoffs start, you can let him have it. So what does that mean? I can say more than challenge the call once the playoffs start? I'm just being a passionate fan and rooting the team on. That's all. That's all I'm doing. I'm not trying to upset anybody and don't want an issue, but I just kind of said this. I think Cornelius is his name, the head of security. He was kind of in the middle between the two. And I was just like, well, I just don't want, I just not okay with how it was left or being treated that way when I didn't cross the line. That's all. And so he got us hooked up with a photo pass. Now, I didn't know what it was really meant to do. I thought we were going to get to meet a player. And then I found out with the photo pass, from the person who gave it to us that it was good for up to 8 people. And so then I started inviting friends around us at the game, people that we've become friendly with, acquaintances. A couple of the people, the women, Dawn has their numbers, and we've shared pictures, vacation pictures with them. Like I said, we've met some really wonderful people by being members this year, by being, where we're at and the type of people, super, super nice people. And so we invited them down to, and the groups of 2 is what we did. 2 of the ladies. So yeah, can you see the picture now?
Mm-hmm.
So the 2 ladies next to me, those are the 2 that hammer the referees behind us. They have been coming, and they've been supporting the team, and I think they've been season ticket holders for 13 years.
13 years.
13 years.
Wow.
And this is the first time they got to do something like this. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Which I think is great. Because I think they should do more things like this. I think, you can rotate enough people, especially those that are spending. When the seats that we have, actually, we were told by the 2 ladies on the end who sit right next to us, we were told by them that what we paid this year was double what they paid last year for season 2. Double, dude. So I think you could do some things for those fans,
Mm-hmm.
Little things like this is all it takes. And I didn't want to do this and not include them. Like, if I have an opportunity, that's just who I am. Once I found out I could include other people on this, I didn't ask for permission. It said on there, I didn't say, it says I can bring 8 people. This is good for 8 people. Can I bring some? I just brought 6 more people. I just rounded them up because that's what the information they gave me was. You know what's interesting about that picture is that specific picture, my calves don't look horrible.
Yeah, they actually have really good.
You know what I mean? They're not
shape.
horrible sticks. They're not. And that's the thing about pictures, right? Because I can show you other pictures that we took that in the same outfit, and the same thing, based on the angle, it looks like my legs are like this pen,
Mm-hmm.
like just totally, totally tiny. And there is a difference. I would notice something like that. And then the 2 people on our left. Now, these folks, they traveled to the All-Star game. They went to the All-Star game, and then there was something where it was arranged by Phoenix where you could, I believe, take a bus, and they went to the Vegas game recently in Vegas. The Mercury in Vegas game. That would be kind of cool. But I'm just saying, you're a pretty hardcore fan if you're not just seeing home games.
Mm.
And I don't recall them missing a home game yet.
Yeah.
Maybe one of them has, but at least one of them has always been there. But most of the time is with. But just super. This is the nicest couple you'll ever meet. Incredibly nice. Just almost too good to be true nice. That's how nice they are. Just wonderful people. And they're all really nice, good people, but they're just super, super nice. And yeah, so they were excited about being able to go on the court. They each got to get pictures done at center court, and then we did a group photo off to the side like this, and I put it up because on my Facebook. So check out my Facebook, guys. And other social media, because it all kind of connects together. But it was just fun to be able to do this and to share this. But after we're getting the pictures taken with the person that that was handling it at the moment, I'm like, I thought we were supposed to there was only a couple players out on the floor. I thought we were supposed to get to meet meet a player or something.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, no. And I was like, yeah, I think so. So then I saw Cornelius, and then he waved us over. He figured it out. And Kalia Copper was out on the floor. And so he talked to her and then brought us over. And there she is. She had a phenomenal game. Actually, I tell you what, a lot of the girls change their shoes from time to time.
Mhm.
She wears these bright lime Adidas. They're pretty badass, but she wears the same every game. But you can't miss her. She's very, very athletic, maybe one of the most overall athletic people on the entire roster,
Okay.
and just makes stuff happen. She's not missing many balls as far as layups go. Her layups are going in, okay? And she could just take over like that. Great, solid on defense as well, and can shoot the mid-range shot, can shoot the long ball, and she just had a phenomenal game. And she was the one that one of the players that was hurt for the first half of the season. Knee injury she was coming back from. Knee surgery, I think. So, yeah, just wonderful. She's 6'1". It felt like she was taller than 6'1". I don't know why, but it felt like she was taller than 6'1". But just she was so nice to talk to, and I did bring it up, and she thought it was funny. I said we were talking about the challenges, and I said, yeah, I was the fan that got kicked out of that Golden State game, and she just laughed. She thought that was funny because what's also interesting about this to note is since that game, I don't know if I deserve any credit. I kind of want to take some credit, though, because since that game, the coach has challenged calls in almost every game now. And in this game, he challenged calls twice, and he won both times. And he really put pressure on his assistants, like, am I challenging here? Am I challenging here? Give me an answer. Because he can't always see the replays or whatever. It's their job to be able to do that and advise him. And he won both. He not only challenged, he challenged and won. Like I said, and this wasn't the only game. There's other previous games that I believe had happened on Thursday night, and then there had been an away game after I had been escorted out. So I didn't get an apology. I didn't get to talk to the coach, but it's pretty much behind us now, you know. And I think this also shows why you shouldn't. This is why I do what I do sometimes. This is why I push sometimes. Because you can be told no, and almost like a little kid, and you just keep pushing, and finally the parent just buys you the toy to shut you the fuck up, you know, kind of thing. Yeah. And I do it because it works. It just has. And I wouldn't have pushed if I didn't think I was, if I didn't think I was right. That it just wasn't cool what happened and how it was handled. I totally understand that how the coach could react in the heat of the moment. Totally get that because players do too, and do dumb things that they know better that they should not do. Like maybe even swing at another player. Like you should never do that. You're totally fucking your team. But it happens. Just the heat of the moment, your emotions take over. It happens. Of course, we're supposed to be adults and control ourselves, but it just happens. And I totally get that. And I totally get the response from security for the most part. And they're just doing their job. And that's why I didn't hammer on them that night or, you know, become super confrontational or anything with them. Because I get that. But then after that, how it was handled, it just seemed not okay. And that's why I pushed back a little bit. And this was the result. We got a good experience out of it that we also got to share with other people. So take that for whatever it's worth and whatever lesson. But we're going to continue. We're going to keep our tickets. We've already paid for our tickets for next year. And I think by tomorrow, I have to opt in for the playoff tickets. Make a commitment for the place. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And we'll do that. We want to, like, I didn't come this far to only come this far kind of a thing. And I think they have a great, great chance of going deep. any of the 4 top teams, I wouldn't be surprised to win it all. That's how closely I think things are matched, but we're definitely there and have a solid group, solid team. Did we lose a little power? That happens. That's all good though. But look, so that's our experience with the Mercury update. Just want to let you guys know. So I basically missed half a game. I'm okay with that. And like I said, you kind of make the best out of things. You just keep going forward, make the best out of things, see how it goes, and then you go from there. We're still good being on? Yeah, okay. Then I can just keep running my mouth. So I'll throw this in for a story while Leo's fixing some electrical shit. This is from, let's see, what town is this from? Staffordshire. So we're over in the UK. This was an interesting story. Kind of one of my dumbass news stories that I'm going to share. Police were called to a children's fun day after a woman reportedly climbed on top of a car and took off her top. Families attending the West End Fun Day in Leek, that's the name of the town, took action due to the woman's antics. They claim the woman stripped off her top to reveal her bra and danced inappropriately on the stage where performances were taking place. It's then claimed that she got on the roof of a black Peugeot where she continued to make suggestive movements in front of the children. Eyewitnesses allege the same woman also drove around the wreck in the vehicle. PSCOs were in attendance before officers were called to the scene. It is claimed the incident lasted more than an hour. An hour. Can you imagine that? Woman stripping down, dancing around, doing dumb shit for an hour. Not 10 minutes. One mom told Trent Live she was on top of her car shouting obscenities and dancing. She refused to come down, so took her top off. They waited for police to come. She then drove around the wreck in her car right next to the play area. Another added on social media she was dancing and twerking very inappropriately in front of young children. If only she would have done it here in the U.S. at a school, it would have been okay. You can do that in front of kids here. Moms were having to cover up their children's eyes with their hands. And then they practically rugby tackled her off the stage and everyone cheered as she walked away. Like, it took you an hour to rugby tackle this woman? It is not yet known whether any arrests were made. And they've contacted the police for a statement. You know what it doesn't say here? What I'm curious, I'm really curious of, was alcohol involved? See, these are the questions you have to ask when you read stuff. Because they just don't do their job. They just don't ask the questions that we all want answers to. Because if alcohol wasn't involved, or some other drugs, oof. That would be funny. All right, so I don't know if you saw this, and I haven't decided what I'm gonna do yet or not, but this was about a week ago. This popped up into the news related to MAHA, related to Robert Kennedy, related to Pete Hegseth, that they have this fitness challenge now. And you can look that up, this fitness challenge, where you're supposed to do 100 push-ups and 50 pull-ups in 10 minutes.
Who is this supposed to be targeting? Anyone?
just anyone, just trying to show people, to test yourself, see how fit you are. You know what I mean? And I honestly, I wonder how I would do. I mean, I work out a lot, but I don't do pull-ups.
I was about to say,
I do pull
pull-ups are
downs.
pull-ups are not the easiest thing to be doing
No, they're not easy for anyone.
within
But
10
but
minutes.
without training for it, could I just jump in? Could I get that? See, the push-ups would be easy. So I think if I was to do this, I would record the whole thing because it has to be done within 10 minutes, right? I'd record the whole thing, and I would start with the pull-ups. And then maybe in between the pull-ups, I'd knock out some push-ups and then go back to the pull-ups. Because you're kind of working different muscles there. And the pull-ups, you're going to be more, you're always using your whole arm and everything, but you're also targeting more your biceps and your lats on the pull-up.
What I was gonna ask is, did they specify what type of pull-up / push-up, like the
I
wide grip,
didn't
narrow
see
grip,
that.
under?
I don't know if you can use any grip. I don't know if it's overhand or underhand. I don't know, and I'm kind of wondering. I might work in both. You know what I mean? Underhand and overhand, just depending on how I
would recommend it.
You know what I'm saying? And I think I could knock some out, but it would take me longer. The thing that would be the toughest for me would be the pull-ups, for sure. For sure.
I mean, 10 minutes.
But look at it. What is it saying? This Marine, when the competition ended, so they had a competition. He had the fastest of all participants, 50 pull-ups and 100 push-ups in 2 minutes and 43 seconds. That's some badass work, man.
That's very impressive.
That's some badass work. So I don't think I could be the fastest, but could I complete it? I think I could without any training for it, other than what I do now, right? And somebody who's not working out at all, I think, it would really show them where they're really at physically.
I'll try this later, but I'll do pull-ups in my doorway.
Will you?
So that, I think the pull-ups for me is the easy part.
Yeah.
For sure. I haven't done a push-up in quite a few months, so I don't know how well I would hold up within. But you said it was 110 minutes.
But see, the push-ups to me again would be the easiest, and I could knock out a big chunk right away. I mean, I think I could consecutively do a really good number of push-ups. I don't know if I could do 50 without stopping, but I could do a significant number. And that's why I said I would really focus on doing the pull-ups, getting a short rest and doing more and having to do that multiple times, because at least that's for me that would be the best way for me to approach it. If you think that push-ups would be the hardest for you, I think almost the reverse would be true.
I'm curious because like I mean, if they're just giving you like, oh, just do a pull up, doesn't matter what kind of like, or even the push ups, like they don't have to be very like narrow or diamond or whatever.
Yeah,
like being able.
I
to
think
like
just doing a basic push up. But I think you want to do a real one. I think it needs to be a full rep. And what I like about this is a follow-up, remember, to them talking about instituting the presidential award again and getting that going in schools, the fitness, because that was a big thing when I was a kid, to get a letter that, that you completed the things, and it was a generic letter from the president, right? Whatever, but it was still cool. And you got a little patch, the Presidential Fitness Award. And I believe at one time, even Arnold Schwarzenegger was like, presidents would pick somebody to kind of head it up when they became president. And it was kind of a cool thing. And I don't think it's bad at all to try to push people without being an asshole, but to tell people this is okay, because it's almost like it's okay now to fitness shame. It's almost the reverse of what it used to be. It used to be there was the fat shaming, right?
Yeah.
That people had an issue with. And now it's the opposite. It's targeting people who are into fitness or influencers or just anyone that looks good or is fit. And it's okay to do. Where the fat shaming was not an okay thing to do. But this is okay. And I don't understand why it's okay. And then what was also interesting is in the Wall Street Journal, when they did an article on this, the Wall Street Journal was saying they talked to fitness experts, and the fitness experts said, you want to be careful. Like, really, you really think you need to go to your fucking doctor before you try this? That's just so stupid, man. You know what I mean? You either can do it or you can't. And it's okay to attempt it if you can't do it, just to see where you're at, man. Just to see where you're at. And maybe it would inspire some people a little bit to, well, this is where I'm at. How long will it take me to be able to figure it out, to be able to get to where I can do it in that amount of time? Or even better, someone who can do it, like I think I can, how long would it take me to then improve my time if I focused on it? And nothing, I'm sorry, I just don't think anything bad can come out of me doing that or anyone else even doing that. Why are we...
Can I be devil's advocate?
Well, give me just 1 second. You can be devil's advocate because I'm going to give you another example. Recently, there was a study out. Remember how we've been told for a while now that everybody should get like 10,000 steps a day and how important that is? So there was a new study that came out and said, you don't really need 10,000, just 8,000. And I thought, what a shitty thing to do, because you're just giving people an out. Well, I'm just going to do 8,000 then. I don't have to do 10. I just can do the 8. I'm like, what is the purpose of that? It's just not a positive thing. But yeah, go ahead. Be devil's advocate for me.
Because the push-ups, pull-up thing within 10 minutes is very easy way to people get hurt, especially doing like with horrible form and stuff like that. So I get the...
How you going to get hurt? You going to pull a muscle? Maybe you do.
I was about to say, I've heard it happen a lot more than
and you know
surprised.
What? It'll get better.
No, for sure.
You know what I mean? But you're not gonna die.
No. You won't die, but
you're not gonna die.
Definitely, especially if you're trying to do it so quickly, that's when form really starts to take a shit. Especially, so I think.
Well, sure, but that's why I say that's why I wouldn't worry so much about the speed. I would just worry about doing what I can do at the moment and taking the break and just see what your results are in that 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's still promoting a positive. It's still promoting health, because that was my whole problem with COVID when we shut down the gyms. And then we found out later that there are these antioxidants that are produced, that your body produces when you exercise, that you can't eat them. You can't eat a fruit or something else to get these antioxidants. There are specifically ones that your body produces that make it better for you and your immune system to be able to battle different things and just be healthy. But why we weren't telling people. We were telling people to take shots and then another shot and then another shot. And I wasn't totally against the COVID shot. I was for the COVID shot specifically for people that were at high risk and felt they needed to do it. And I thought it should be a choice. When they started pushing and forcing people and firing people over it, that to me was crossing the line. That's being a dictator, okay? That just was total bullshit, and none of it was true. They didn't have hard science for the distance and stuff. It was just making shit up. And then people wearing shitty masks, okay? It wasn't that masks were totally inefficient, but the ones people wearing Those were. You needed a specific mask. I think they called them M90, I believe it was.
The ones that look
And the
like
way it was more fitted. And because there was a shortage of them at the beginning, you know, they didn't want people rushing out and getting them and making the shortage even greater. So then they made it like, which was just dumb. Dumb. And you should see the mask that I seen that some nurses showed me that they received in the hospital to use. They look like military masks, like you were going into a gas chamber type thing, right? Excuse me. They were fucking like, yeah, that's the mask that works. And then not only that, to really do it right, you needed to be wearing goggles and you needed to be wearing gloves. And people were not doing all three of those things and they weren't doing them correctly. So it like really what we did made not much of a dent or much difference at all. And the more important thing was if you were sick, you should stay home. If you were at high risk, there were probably areas you shouldn't go at certain times to keep that risk down. I totally get that. But the rest of us should have been allowed to go and do our business. And then the whole push for kids and keeping kids out of school, that was insanity, man. That was insanity because the kids were not at risk. They just weren't. And if a teacher thought they were at risk, well, then the teacher could choose to get a shot if they wanted to. They shouldn't be forced to. And if they wanted to use any type of protection, then use it. But then do it properly. Do you know that, think about it, dude, we're at the end of 2025, and sometime during the week, okay, well, I just said, so we were at the Mercury basketball game on Saturday night, okay?
Okay.
You know what I saw there? I saw a handful of people still putting on a mask, still wearing a mask. And then I see people doing it and walking around just like they did during COVID with the fucking mask under their nose. Like, what are you trying to signal to people here? You think that the latest strain of COVID is so bad because they tried to promote this latest strain here recently and pump it up a little bit? So some people are scared, so they're wearing the mask. But again, you have the mask, but you're not using it correctly. So what's the point even? I just, to still be doing it this many years later now is a little crazy to me. But I get it that some people, I'm trying to understand people being scared. But that's our fault for those people being scared. It's our fault for allowing that in media to be able to just, blow that up. And again, I'm not against the vax, but at none of that time, there was only a short period of time. I don't know if it was a year after it all started, but it was in the spring, so it must have been a year after it started, where there was a very short window, like about 30 days or so, where the information that I just gave you came out about exercising and dieting and the antioxidants and the benefits of that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's people that had multiple issues. That's why it was so deadly in nursing homes. And that's always the case in nursing homes, man. Always. MRSA is one of the deadliest things in nursing homes all the time, and most people don't even know what it is, okay? And people contact MRSA, it then can be easily spread. But how the MRSA kills them is they have multiple other health issues. It's just the one that tips the scale for them over that. It's not the MRSA alone. And that's pretty much how COVID was. It was the one that tipped the scale. Now, there's a few, a small percentage of very healthy people, but it was a very tiny percentage. And I ended up being one of those small percentage of people. Even so, I've never denied it, that I wasn't a COVID denier. I was just an anti how we were handling it. But it was because I didn't have diabetes. It was, a little more risk for me at being 57 than somebody who's 27. Okay, but I still wasn't the highest risk category. I wasn't overweight. And I just didn't have other health issues. But people who had those types of health issues and got it were at a greater risk of dying, for sure. But everyone could benefit from getting healthier, eating better. What a great time to use something that was terrible when people lost loved ones to say, you know what, maybe in this country, the vaccine, if you need it, get it. But we've been going the wrong direction for a little while now, that we've become one of the more unhealthy groups of people on the face of the earth. I don't know if there is any population, we'd have to look it up, but I don't know if there is any population in the world that is more overweight than adults in the U.S. We're probably the most overweight adults of any nation in the U.S. I'm just guessing. And I think I think I'm going to be close. And I think that's important. And we need to get better because of our healthcare costs. See, we can say we need to change things in regards to healthcare, and I won't dispute that. I absolutely think for what we pay, we should have better outcomes, right, than what we do. But what can we control? You know what we can control is ourselves. What we can control is our own diet. What we can control is, how we react to things and whether we exercise or not. So what do we got? What kind of reason?
USA only has 43%.
So there's quite a few nations that are a little heavier. A lot of small island nations, huh?
Yeah. Like a lot of them are more of the smaller islands.
Interesting some of the Middle East countries that listed ahead of us.
Yeah, I was not expecting Egypt and Qatar to be.
Or Kuwait. I don't know. When I see Middle Eastern people, I mean, maybe it's being hid under the long clothing that they wear, but they don't typically look in general like they're really big and heavy. At least that's not what I feel like I see.
Yeah.
And I'm not, maybe it's just because we're not seeing the real I guess the real deal, the real people. So the Pacific area of the world is really high. So that what's that, like your Hawaiians and stuff? But that's America. But other nations in the Pacific.
Yeah, because they seem they consume a lot of processed and imported food. So that makes
it makes sense now. But who's that as a you know what? You know who I blame for that? Probably us. We're probably at fault because you said imported, right?
Yeah.
Who's exporting that shit? Us. When you're feeding somebody to keep them alive and people that are starving in starving nations, what do we usually send them? Carbs? We send them carbs, right? We're not sending them protein. We're not sending them beef, for God's sakes. We're sending them some kind of flour or bread shit, right? To save them. I'm just saying that, but that's on us. And I think countries that have westernized a little bit, I mean, they didn't create McDonald's in Japan or these other countries. They imported that shit from us. That's our fault. I don't know. But we still are high on the list. But it is interesting that, and this is a case where they use BMI.
Yeah.
Where it's actually, that's the best way to use BMI. You as an individual should never use BMI to measure yourself. Because for me, my BMI says I'm overweight, but my body fat percentage says I'm in the top 1% for my age group at 14%, which is excellent. And because it's just using weight, the BMI does. But BMI, this is what it is supposed to be used for, is evaluating mass populations of people, and it's the best metric we have to get an overall sense. It's not perfect, but it gives us a better overall idea and better metric. Individuals, totally ignore BMI, please, on your scales. It's total garbage. Let's see. In the Middle East and North Africa, the regional rise in obesity has been especially rapid. And among high-income countries like the U.S., lifestyle, dietary patterns contribute to high obesity prevalence. It is kind of odd now that you have this dichotomy, I guess we would call it, among the wealthy people, where there's I think the new group of wealthy people are people that are more fit that you see, like the Alex Hormozis or these other just generally more fit. And then you have the old school wealthy people, and I'll even put Trump in there, okay? Because Trump is overweight by any measure and probably measures obese even with his body fat percentage. I'm sure he's in the obese category. And then you look at the Illinois governor who's really obese, right? And super, super wealthy, that it's almost like a king, you're a fat king. And just enjoying life and just eating to excess. And it meant money and security. It used to mean that thing. But nowadays, there's been a change in that where people like me, I take what I do in the gym and my fitness and my dedication to fitness, my just discipline that I get from going to the gym. And it is discipline. To me, discipline is the most important characteristic. Doing what you don't want to do, and then just, you don't want to do it, but you do it anyways. And when I can do that in the gym, when I can do what I don't want to do, then I know in my daily life, I can do the same thing, that I can conquer that. That the thing that you would put up, that some of the shit you just don't want to do, but you got to do it anyways. And that's the thing I think now today defines and separates people from having success or not. And there's a lot of debate right now on hard work. What's hard work? There's a lot of debate, especially among young people who are anti-capitalism now. They're democratic socialists. And it's a large group of people, and they get that at college. That's where they're being taught democratic socialism, is in college. And there's an interesting new video out of Patrick Bet-David having one of those things that we've talked about before where somebody sits down and takes on a group of 20 people or whatever and debates things. So he just released that. I think I've only seen half of it so far, and I think he does pretty good, but he's not as impressive to me as Ben Shapiro is, watching Ben on those, or watching Charlie Kirk and what he's done on that. I just think those guys are just incredible debaters. I think Patrick Bet-David is excellent. Don't get me wrong. I really do think he's excellent and makes some good points. But I didn't think he had some of the answers when these people who were anti-capitalism, he would bring up the fact that, because they would bring up somebody working 4 jobs. A single mother working 4 jobs. And he would mention bad choices, but he didn't stick to the bad choices hard enough. Okay, I'm not trying to condemn someone because they have a a child out of wedlock. But but when somebody has a child out of wedlock and becomes a single mom, the statistics are just there. Their chances of having success are reduced by that. I mean, to be successful, there were three things, I think, that were not huge hurdles. I think the one was not, getting someone pregnant or getting impregnated, getting your high school diploma, and I don't know if it was just there was a third thing. I don't remember what the third thing was. I'll have to look that up and figure it out. But it was not a high bar, man. And if you did those three things, you were probably going to end up in the middle class. But if you fucked up on one of those things, it didn't eliminate your possibility that you could turn your shit around. Mm-hmm. But it did mean that was something that the people at the bottom had in common, that more of them ended up in that situation. Patrick Bet-David, I mean, his parents got divorced twice, which means they got married twice, right? So he experienced that. He had the experience of coming here and his father not having anything. And he wasn't born to a wealthy family. And I don't think young people realize that a majority of the wealth and the wealthy class is new wealth. It's like the number of where it's passed down from families is like less than 30%.
Really?
Yeah. Dude, the number of people that are wealthy and is it's new wealth. It's not generation. It's not being a part of the Hilton family is kind of what I'm getting at. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, that number is lower than you think it is, which just means that there is opportunity here. And you don't, you got to work hard. Of course you got to work hard. But what does your hard work, how many people does your hard work? Yeah, look at that. See, 67.7% self-made. And where it's totally inherited, less than 10%. Where there's a blend, maybe they had some good opportunities. Maybe their families weren't wealthy, but their families made a good income, and where they went to good schools is that 23%. But I think it says a lot that almost 70% were self-made, that it wasn't handed to them. And even Trump would be, I don't know if he didn't fully inherit it. He would be in that mixed, but he would be at the high end of that mixed because his dad was really wealthy.
I was about to say, yeah, he came from money.
Yes. But the money that he was given is not everybody that's, I'm just saying he could have been wealthy, but not, and continued to be wealthy, but to become a billionaire, if that's all you had to do was be like he was to become a billionaire, we'd have a lot more billionaires, and we don't. So what he did with that was also exceptional. That's all. Fidelity suggests 88% of millionaires are self-made because people forget about the millionaire next door, that a large group of millionaires aren't the flashy people. They're the clients that I had who were in their late 50s or 60s, who worked at very good jobs, like engineers. Engineers was a great one for that. And where they saved, they invested in overtime, and they had a net worth of maybe, including their home, of maybe 2 to 3 million. Along with their 401k and other investments, low-end millionaires. And sometimes these people, they didn't even live in the new neighborhoods like I lived in for a while. They lived, my one client that I just keep picturing, that's the perfect example, because there was a book called The Millionaire Next Door. Excellent book, excellent read. But they, I don't know, I think they probably lived in their same house. You know, even my father-in-law, who came from nothing and was a self-made millionaire, he never lived in a ginormous house until he lived with me. And he had way more money than me. They had a nice suburban home, maybe with a little bit more square footage than what we had, where we had like 1,000 square feet, and they probably had 1,500, but they had a built-in pool. And my father-in-law would keep his Mercedes or his Lincoln or Cadillac, whichever he had, he would keep that in the garage. He would actually, when he was, this is a dude who's worth millions and was a successful insurance and investment. That's what he did, insurance and investments, sold them. He would drive like a Tempo. He had another car that he would drive on his appointments. A Tempo. Ford. And I don't even think he wore, I think he wore clip-on ties most of the time too. God bless him. He just, but yeah. But wasn't, like I said, just was one of the probably 3 wealthiest people in our small community of 2,200 or whatever, you know? But he just didn't have the flash, but he was a, you know, a millionaire. And that's where people need to understand there's a difference between wealth and affluent. I'm affluent again. I'm not wealthy yet. Affluence is high income. Wealth is having money that is, affluence is making $1 million, but you're spending the money or a lot of it. And wealth is having $1 million you don't need. It's net worth, not income, net worth. To me, you're not really a millionaire because you made $1 million. You're a millionaire because you have $1 million you don't need to use to provide for anything that you have, really. That's to me is the difference.
Is it easier to make $1 million now than it is?
Is it easier?
Yeah, harder.
Well,
because that was my next kind of thing, right?
That's a great question.
Is because, like, what are we categorizing a standard as self-made, right? Like, if it's easier to make money nowadays, there's obviously going to be a lot more self-made millionaires, right? So that's why that number is going to be super, super high. But, like,
well, those were 2018 numbers that they were showing.
21. Was it 2018?
Some of them. There was all a kind of a mix from when they did these different studies. I don't think.
Or does that make a difference at all?
I don't know. Let's figure it out. So being a millionaire, does it mean as much today as it did then?
I don't feel like it does.
I don't feel like it does either. So it should be somewhat easier, right? Because I feel like the new 100,000 I've shared before, when I was your age, 100,000 was a lot of fucking money, dude. In the 80s. And we had millionaires then, but in the 80s, you made 6 figures, you were kicking ass, right? And I don't think that's, when I got to be an adult and in my 30s and 40s, households, maybe not individuals, your typical middle class household was making around 100,000 at least, because you would have maybe just a little more, around 120, because in my area, you would have like the 2 biggest employers was auto and healthcare, because we had Jeep and we had hospitals, right? Okay. So you would have a lot of Jeep workers. I don't know why this is true, but a lot of Jeep workers would be married to nurses. And so the nurses are making, 50 to 60, and they were making 50 to 60, maybe more in years of overtime and bonuses. They might be making 70. So again, that gets you to 100, 120,000, right? And those are the people that they had debt, though, too. But those are the people that had a nice house, maybe not the biggest, but nice. They had a boat and 2 new cars because they could get the discount because they worked for them or whatever. But that's what you would typically see. They were not great savers, but they were. And now that 100,000 is even less meaningful, even less. So if 100,000 means less, then $1 million has to mean less, right?
Yeah.
Just, I don't know what would be the equivalent in today's money to what $1 million meant in 1990. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was so 1 million is about 2.4 million today's dollars.
Compared to it didn't even use 1990.
Yeah.
Dude, I just totally made that up. That's so funny. That's good. But yeah, so yeah. It's less.
Mm.
Are more people doing it? I don't know.
Yeah, it says that it.
Have the percentages changed? Are more people achieving?
Yeah.
Where does it say that?
That's why I was asking the
question. On a
question.
percentage basis, this is what I want to know. On a percentage basis, are more people achieving the 2.4 million today than they did the million in 1990? And it's the percentage I want, not total number of people, because I think the percentage is a greater reflection.
To the 1900s?
To the 1990s. But see, that's going to use a lower number than what I was saying. Just change that the people, what is the percentage of the people today that have the 2.4 million or more compared to the 90s 1 million or more? Get rid of that part. Yeah, I think that's good. I love how we can do this. So it's actually less. So it's not easier now, it's harder.
It's harder to live. It's more expensive to live now, so it's
Well,
it's
of course,
harder.
but that we're adjusting the numbers though.
I don't know if
We're
I get
figuring that
I
in.
get what you're saying, but I don't
Well,
know.
I'm just
There's a lot of aspects to it.
But it takes 2.4 million to live like the 1 million did then.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So that's the benchmark, and less people are achieving that today.
Mm-hmm.
So it's harder to get to, which would totally buy into the wealth gap, right?
Yeah.
Becoming greater.
Yeah.
So now that makes sense, right? But what's the reason we have the wealth gap? The wealth gap isn't because we have more billionaires. The wealth gap really, and I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but a big part of it is the debt, and because people don't have assets. Less people have assets today. And that's why it's so important, especially for middle class people, their biggest asset tends to be their home. And when you have fewer people that are able to get into a home, or it takes them longer to get into the home, like it's harder to get into a home in your 20s now than it used to be. That maybe it's delayed a decade, and that just sets everything back. But especially because of inflation, and what causes the inflation is the money, the debt that we have as a country affects us. That's where the issue is, and where we need to focus our attention on is enabling more people to get that start. That's what can close the wealth gap again. And it's not that other people are trying to take it away from those people. It's mismanagement of the country. I'll give people that. And when it comes to capitalism, capitalism is great. What's not great is crony capitalism, which is corruption. But corruption in any system is bad. Any system. So it's not that capitalism directly invites that. It's human nature that invites that. It's bad people who do things. And we have to have a balance. We didn't have a balance 100 years ago. 100 years ago, employers could do pretty much anything they wanted to employees. And today we have regulations that puts limits on what they can do to people, how long they can make them work. This is the whole labor thing. It ties into Labor Day and labor unions getting the credit for, work weeks and weekends and time off and benefits and all of that. And that's where we're at, that it's a fine line. I don't believe in no regulation and just market forces, because we've done that before in our history and it didn't work. But over-regulation also has a negative impact on the growth or the ability to grow and do, especially when it comes to things like, if a company is trying to expand, or they're, look, I want to build a new building on this piece of land, but I got to go through this testing and that testing. I got to test for this frog that maybe only lives in this fucking creek in the whole fucking world and shit like that. You know what I mean? And it takes me 4 years to get an answer on whether I can build there. Now, maybe we say that frog is important, but it shouldn't take 4 years to come to that conclusion. That's the problem with when we get to like over-regulation of things and wanting to shorten that. And I like the idea that I don't know if it's exactly the number they're using, but when we get a new regulation, one of Trump's ideas was when we add a new regulation, that we're also getting rid of bad regulations. I mean, there are still things that if we looked it up that are absolutely asinine, that are still on the books, that are illegal today. And we could do, a simple thing on that, but getting rid of that, at some point, it's good to just clean stuff up. Clean that off the book. Even if they're not enforcing it anymore, having it on the books is just dumb. And I know how I feel when things get cluttered in my room, in my office, in my house. And then sometimes you just got to buckle down and just clean everything up first. And while you're cleaning stuff up, it often will look even worse or messier than when you started. But eventually there's that flip, there's that turnaround, right? Where it just gets better and better and better. And you're able to work better and more efficient with less clutter. No different than regulations. You're able to work better. But there is a fine line on that we have to figure out. And sometimes, like I said, we just go too far. We go too far in both directions. There are people that actually think today, maybe we don't have the right regulations, but you work in the banking business. I was in the financial business. When people want to say that, there's not enough regulation in the financial or banking business, I laugh, because as you know, it's one of the most highly regulated businesses in our country. The only thing I can ever think of that might be more highly regulated, or was for a while, is nuclear power. Seriously. We have a lot of regulations, and they're not all good. They're not all helpful to people.
Same thing, just worded slightly different to cover all bases.
Yeah. And it's not good. We go too far. And that cuts people off from being able to. That was one of the points that Patrick Bet-David made. And one of the things that China changed is because there was a point in China's history where they only had one bank in the whole country. There was one bank. And what they found out from Japan and other countries was they needed multiple banks competing and loaning money. They needed that competition. And what's been happening in this country over the last 30 years in banking? We've been going the other way. We've been eliminating banks. You compare the number of banks that we had in 1990 to today, it's way fucking less, dude. And that's not necessarily a good thing when you're concentrating all of that into fewer. And then when you have the government, like it did, pick winners and losers and not just let banks fail. I'm sorry, some banks should have been allowed to fucking fail, because then the strong banks would have taken over, and the things that people did at the weak banks, they would learn not to do that again, because they would have been hurt and penalized. When they don't feel any pain, when they don't feel any financial pain, when their stock options don't go down, when they're not saved, they don't have that incentive to eliminate that risk. And then they continue to take that risk that then explodes on us, like it did in bonds at one point in our history not long ago, and then in housing. Same thing. Again, the regulations got a little too weak when it came to housing and what they were loaning to people. And then now we're in a situation where it's too tight, where we're not loaning to as many people now and making it harder. And with the rates being higher, doesn't help either. And who that affects is the middle class. The wealthy people will figure it out. They may not like it. It may, it will still affect them, but not like it will people that are middle class. It'll hit the middle class the hardest. So it's just that kind of policies, but interesting. How did we get there from doing push-ups? I have no idea. Dude. I really don't. I don't. But it was good to talk about. I do like digging into that a little bit and helping people understand a little bit about what it takes, and just because somebody's, working hard, what are you working hard at? And I think there's also a difference in the amount of time. It's minimum wage jobs aren't the problem. The problem is if you're still doing the minimum wage job 5 years after you start, 10 years after you start, 20 years after you start, you've made some bad decisions. And I've been there. I've made bad decisions. I went from being very affluent to, like I said, making $15 pushing a wheelbarrow under the table. That was not good. But I caused that. And I had to work very, very hard at an age when you really don't want to be doing that kind of work. You really don't want to be pushing a wheelbarrow full of stone back and forth for 8 to 10 hours every day. Literally like the worst ditch digger, hard labor type shit. It's just not good. And because anybody can do it, you don't have to really have a brain to be able to do it. It doesn't pay well. Just doesn't. But I had to go through that, but I didn't stay there. I did what I had to do and found a way out. I found another thing that I believed in, that I could support, that I could share with other people, and that was Lavelle. Lavelle was a big turning point for me. And Lavelle was multi-level marketing, MLM. It was a network marketing company. It's real simple. It was vitamins. And I believed in their vitamins. And shared that with others, and other people decided to try them. They liked the results they got, and they bought the vitamins. And that's what helped pull me out and pull me in a different direction as far as health and wellness and fitness. And I built some other things on top of that. But it started with that. And I did that while also doing the really physical labor, becoming a journeyman union laborer. I started that on top of doing that 60 hours a week. Added that on until I was able to make enough and not have to do the other. But that's also very hard to do. A lot of people don't want to take that risk and cut off the known paycheck to grow the paycheck that isn't guaranteed, but to make it even greater, so that what I needed was that 50 or 60 hours here, that I could put that 50, 60 to what I was doing over here. But again, with this 20 hours over here, I had already built it up to make as much as I was making with the 60 over here. But again, that was guaranteed. Just taking a chance and believing in yourself. And I'm not saying that that's easy, but for those of us that do it, you get rewarded for it. That's where the reward is. The reward isn't over here. It doesn't mean that that's bad work, but you're limited to what you can grow and what you can do. I mean, working at the bank, as you're not salary yet, you're hourly, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the bank is only open a certain number of hours. And they're probably not going to work you 6 days a week from open to close. They're probably not going to do that. But even if they did do that,
I would quit.
as you probably should. But my point is, that would be the maximum amount of money that you could make. There's really not a lot of other ways that you can increase that. That would be your only way to increase it, is by to increase the number of hours.
Either that or promote.
Yeah. Right? No, the promotion's then different. But then if you're promoted, again, you might then get a salary, or then not just a salary, you might be entitled to commission or some other bonus that's tied to performance, right? And then you have a little bit of ability to affect your income in a way that's not adding more time.
Yeah.
It's just about being better and good and growing. That's the point I'm trying to make. That's where the money, and why shouldn't you be rewarded more? Because there's other people in the bank that have that same position, and they all don't make the same amount of money. It's no different than whoever handles mortgages at the bank. There's a couple people at the bank, and they may not be at your branch, but let's say within an area, that you guys are grouped in, there's going to be a couple that make a shit ton of money and make more than the manager of the bank, but they generate more. And then there's going to be other people that do mortgages that aren't going to make as much. And they have the same opportunity. They have the same tools. They all have the same access to what JP Morgan has to offer, but their results are different. And the one that has the better results gets more money. It's just how it works. And I don't think that's a bad thing. And some people may choose, and people can choose. You can choose that, you know what? I'm okay not being in the top 10%. I'm okay just being in the top 20%, because this is what I want to do with my life. And I don't want to put in the effort or the additional hours off the clock or whatever it would take to be in the top 10%. I'm okay. I can meet my family's bills. We can have a nice life. We can go on vacation. But those are choices, and you get to make those choices here in this country, which is what I think is so great. It's self-determination. But you would never, how, if you all got paid the same as a mortgage originator, if they all got paid the same, no matter how many mortgages they produced, what's the incentive for the guy who is number one now to continue to work that hard so that other people can get part of his money and his work and so that they all make the same? You're not good. That's why that system doesn't work. That system literally does not work because you're taking that incentive away from that guy. And we need to stop shaming that guy, just like we're shaming fitness people. Stop shaming the guy that chooses to forego certain other things. I made choices that were, and I did really well. Especially I worked through it after 7 years in the financial business. My next 17 years was very, very good at the high end. How do I want to say it? I just feel like when I did that, it was a choice, but I wasn't making some of the best decisions. Like I said, I was still drinking much of that time. I never had any bad thing happen to me when I smoked weed, like I shared, that my bad shit always involved alcohol. It might involve alcohol and weed, but weed just alone, bad shit didn't happen to me. It was always weed and alcohol or just alcohol. Alcohol's where the shit fucked me up. But I still wonder, what could I have done if I wasn't as successful as I became during that period of time? What more could I have done if I wasn't doing that? Especially in my 30s, later 30s. Yeah, it could have been a whole different ball game. And then it's mindset after that. It just is. So it's not that you can't do those things and still have some success, because I did. I had a great life by a lot of measures. And where I lived, what I drove, financially speaking. But it was my bad choices, and it was those choices that led to my downfall too. It was related to that. Even though losing everything happened after I got sober, it was still related to my choices that led me to losing everything. It was my bad choices. And what I see with these people that were having this whole discussion about being anti-capitalist, they're not taking responsibility for those choices. And they're not understanding that, no, your passion isn't enough to drive you to do things for the common good of everyone. That's just not a good enough incentive. That's never worked. It didn't work here from, when the Pilgrims first settled on the Mayflower and came here. And you look at what they did and then how they changed things. They started out doing it as a community and for the common good. And then that didn't work. And then they let them do what they wanted to do. Okay, you don't want to farm, you want to raise the pigs, you raise the pigs. You want to farm and do the corn, you do the corn. You want to make dresses, stuff, you make the dresses. Letting people do that instead of, again, for themselves versus for the common good. That's just, it's nice. It'd be great if that was a thing, but it's not. It's not going to motivate people. It never has. It's a demotivator. And I think that's still a problem today we have with unions now. And again, I'm not bad-mouthing unions, but there is a certain percentage that take advantage of things and take advantage of certain rules and things and aren't doing the work. And then you have a group of people that are doing the work. And like, how much harder are they really going to be willing to work when this person's getting rewarded the same as them? What's their incentive to do more if they're not going to get more? I don't know how that works, and it hasn't. So, all right, that's kind of what I had on that. College football, real quick. Hit on that real quick. Look, rough weekend for me. Very rough weekend. It was a great weekend for football. Absolutely loved it. How many days in a row, and even on Sunday for college football. The two biggest games, Ohio State versus Texas. Arch Manning was all the talk preseason, taking over Texas, and he gets his starting debut as the named quarterback. He did play other games last year, but not like this. And starting it off against the national champion while also being ranked as number one. And we saw how much those rankings were off this weekend. But Texas did not look great. And there wasn't a huge difference between Arch Manning and Jay Sayan for the Ohio State Buckeyes. The difference was Sayan didn't make the mistakes. That was all the difference in the world to him. So, great game, though. Both teams very conservative coming out of the gate, and a very, very hard-fought game. But, yeah, Ohio State pulling that one out. And that defense looking like, wow, they are going to be tough to contend with this year. And you got to feel like that offense is only just going to keep getting better and better. So, they had a lot of pieces that got drafted, a lot. But they filled in those gaps, apparently, and looked maybe not great, but they did what they had to do to win. That was the goal of this game, was to not look pretty, but do what they have to do to win and keep those mistakes to a minimum, and they did that. Also interesting to me how we keep talking about Sarkisian, the coach of the Texas, over and over again, and about how good he is, when really his record against the top teams isn't so good. And we give Day a lot of shit, and I'm not a huge fan of Ryan Day, but you look at his record against top 10 teams, it's pretty fucking good. Yeah, they lost to Michigan last year. They were national champions. They don't fucking care. As important as the Ohio State-Michigan game is, being national champion is more important, for sure. So, and then Alabama, really quickly, Alabama, this is not going to work out, and they paid this coach $70 million. Guaranteed. All this guaranteed money shit needs to be adjusted somewhere. It's not working out. I'm not saying there shouldn't have been any money guaranteed, but when you're guaranteeing that much money, so this guy is locked in for a couple years. They're not going to eat $70 million. But they're also not going to tolerate what's going on in Alabama and this decline for very long. They won't. They'll figure out how to get the money or work something else out in the contract or rework it and pay him longer and get rid of him. But I don't see that improving much. And I think this is last year with Alabama kind of being on the bubble of the playoffs and just missing it. We're not going to be on the bubble this year. I think I see at least 3-4 more losses coming down the pike. It's coaching. You can't say it's the players. It wasn't the players last year. He was handed a great team from Saban. Yeah, some kids left the program, but they're deep. They were deep. And some of those players, that left are having success elsewhere. But those were people that weren't even getting on the field. That just shows how deep they are. Just not good. There's no reason for that in Alabama playing Florida State. Florida State look better. They're not as horrible as they were last year. And you got to look previous to that. They were halfway decent remember, they had the year where people thought they should have been in the playoffs the year before. So in 23. So maybe last year was a little bit of a blip for them. And they're going to be better. They're going to be a top team in the ACC. Clemson, LSU, also very good. That was nice to see. I thought Clemson would win that game, and they didn't. So maybe LSU is going to be more of a top contender in the SEC than I thought. But I still think Clemson is going to be near the top of the ACC. It'll be interesting to see. And what Belichick does with the University of North Carolina, too. Who doesn't want to see what happens there? Tough loss for my Colorado. You know, I root for the Buffaloes because of Deion. Tough loss there. We're close, but bottom line was he didn't have Shedeur Sanders to bail him out. That was the difference. So he's got to do, just like his kids have to be successful without him, he's got to be successful without the kids. And I still think that foundation is there somewhat, but we didn't see it in that first game. Bad clock management, and I don't shit on Deion a lot, but that last minute that they had where they could have potentially done something, totally mismanaged the clock. Absolutely horrible not calling timeouts. And then finally, my Notre Dame last night, I thought that was the game of the whole weekend, besides, obviously the Texas-Ohio State game. And just as far as quality goes, I think it was a little higher quality from Miami and from Notre Dame both. And that's a game that I felt like when Notre Dame came back and tied it up at the end, that it really didn't matter who won the game. Well, it does matter, but both of these teams are going to be there for the long, that even whoever lost the game, and it ended up being Notre Dame, is going to be there at the end of the season. Notre Dame's going to have to do basically what they did last year. They're going to have to win the rest of their games. But I think that is something that they can do, that it's a really, really solid team, well coached. And Miami with Beckett quarterback, they definitely have a chance for that. So even though Cam Ward was considered so great with them, they didn't get the results that they expected last year and kind of faltered at the end. Beck's been there and done that, and he looked like it in big games. He can do that. So college football, just absolutely fun and exciting to have football back. But it also means that we've gone through the year very, very fast. Very fast. And I'm feeling that too, which just puts more pressure on me and what I think about, life and the things that I do. Life goes by so fast. So I'll just leave you with this. Whatever you do, find a way to get some enjoyment along the way. No matter what kind of work you do, find a way to experience life and get good experiences along the way. Whether you're that hourly worker or salaried worker or entrepreneur, okay? The hard work, I totally get it. I'm there with you. But I do that at the same time. It's how I choose to work it out. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I absolutely would not cut out the extra things that I do now to enjoy life, to save it for later. Later may not ever come, and you'll never have that experience. And no matter whatever happens to me in my future, the experiences that I've had and even had and then totally failed and had to rebuild my entire life, I had some great experiences in there that were lifetime experiences that some people will never get. And that's one thing people could never take away from me. They couldn't take that away, and they couldn't take away everything I learned to be able to get there, and which is why I was able to do it again. Because you could take away possessions, but you couldn't take away the drive and the knowledge that I acquired and that I could apply again and that I didn't have to relearn. That's just shit I knew. So enjoy life, people. Enjoy today. Enjoy that barbecue. God bless you. Happy Labor Day. This is the Outlaw Apostle Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Neff. I'm the fucking guy.